Hi, welcome to Bear Mountain. Well, you wouldn't believe this. This is the middle of February and it's almost 60 degrees out here. So we have finally been able to put enough of our other winter projects to bed, and we've been able to get back to the hoop house build. As you may recall, it's been a couple of months and we did part 2 where we showed about the ribs and putting them in place. So now what we're working on is finishing off the ends and putting the cabling on to hold the ends rigid, and then we're going to put the skin on. So part 4 will be actual putting the skin on. So today we're going to talk about how we put the ends together, why we did it the way we did it, and how that fits in the context of what we have to deal with here on the farm. So let's get started on that. Okay, what I want to talk about here is why we put our ends together the way we do. All of our hoop houses have been Caterpillar type structures. This is our first one where we've actually bought the kit from a farmer's friend out of Tennessee, and we've been really pleased with it so far. We're making a couple modifications. The farmer's friend is more of a traditional Caterpillar, where they will actually have the plastic draw to a point at a ground stake, and they don't have official ends on them. And we're going to make ours a little more rigid. What we do in our context where we're at is we don't necessarily have huge amounts of wind events. So what we have done is we've taken a modified end that allows us to use a ratcheting system to actually pull the end and tighten the plastic once we put the plastic on. When we show that in the plastic skinning the greenhouse video, it'll make a lot more sense. But the whole idea behind this is when we put the plastic on, the actual end wall will be rotated in slightly, and then when we attach the plastic into the U-channel itself with the wiggle wire, the last step will be ratcheting through these cables the end back to vertical, which tightens the plastic itself. So you don't have to, as an individual, sit there and go reefing on the plastic to try to get it as tight as you can on a rigid end. The idea behind this is the end is flexible and movable, and you're using mechanical force of a ratchet to actually tighten the plastic itself. The ends are pretty simple. We use pressure treated 2x4 and a base plate of pressure treated 2x6. We put for each eye bolt that we connect our ground cables to, we made certain that we have a stringer going down to the base plate. So we have 2 stringers on each side. We have our main open door, which is 4 feet. And then we have, again, 2 stringers on the other side where the other guy wires are. Now, what this does is this creates a wide opening path that's at least 4 to 6 feet wide to get through, and then a 4-foot wide open door itself. When we'll talk about how we construct the plastic covering on the ends, but the basics of it is the plastic from the main part will roll over the top, be connected here, and then we have a second connector right here. And this is where our door, our roll-up plastic door, will connect to. We don't use a formalized fixed door system. We use a roll-up system, so that what we can do is we can roll the plastic up and get maximum ventilation, because what's important for us is we have such heavy groundwater in winter and spring that once you put a plastic skin over a tunnel, we really have to do a lot of ventilation to get the humidity down. So if we used a fixed covered end with a door, we couldn't get as much ventilation in as we need to. So basically we can have pretty much this entire open end rolled up, and we get really good airflow all the way through. Now, the base plate itself, just the final thing on it, is 2x6 as we talked about. And what we do is we pin this 2x6 with 4 roughly 3-foot, 1/2-inch rebars, and that pins it to the ground, which gives it the ability to stay fixed along with the stakes from the hoop itself. And so there is rocking back and forth like this, but there is no racking going the other way. So this is actually pretty firm, but when you look at it and you say, well, can I move it? And I can move it back and forth, but just that couple of inches of movement is what we're going to be banking on to tighten the plastic.
What about the strap that's going down the center?
This is a new thing for us. We usually haven't done that. But one of the things we noticed on our older style with just a straight Caterpillar roping system is we can get movement because the plastic expands and contracts depending on how the temperature is, and the actual ribs themselves can move a bit. This is a great idea. It came with the kit from Farmer's Friend. It's a UV resistant nylon strap, and basically by looping it around each one of the ribs with a ratchet on the end here, we can tighten these up and we can keep the ribs to a vertical. So we think that it's not as expensive as putting in like a metal purlin to do that, and this will probably be last just as long as the plastic itself when we put on. So it'll be something that we replace when we replace the plastic again in 4 or 5 years.
Do you think that it'll make a difference for a snow load?
No, not really. It's more anything else is just to keep the ribs in a more vertical alignment. It's not really going to add any kind of strength to it. But what we did for snow load is we modified the Farmer's Friend formula a little bit more, and we put more ribs in, and so we spaced our ribs at 4 feet instead of 5. Our experience has been is that with 4-foot spacing on the ribs, we can get more strength, and it can hold, you know, more easily a load of snow without having the plastic sagging.
Since snow isn't a typical thing here, why are we worried about snow loads?
Because when it happens, we have, this is going to be our, let's see, 5th tunnel. And what we have to do is, when we get these circumstances for us, usually what happens is we get ice with it, and we get snow, and then we get ice, and it kind of goes back and forth.
And our snow is usually pretty wet and slushy.
Very wet and very heavy. And so when we do get these events, which, you know, like this year we didn't have anything at all. We've been very warm this year. Everything's moving ahead early. This is great. But in the past couple of years, we've had some pretty good snowstorms. And they're not all the time. It's not like, you know, the Midwest gets hit with it every 3 or 4 weeks. We maybe get 1 or 2 instances a year, but when we do get some, we've gotten some where we've gotten 9 to 12 inches of snow. Snow is always kind of like a local thing. It can be on this side of the hill and we get 12 inches. We go on the other side of the hill and they got 2. Why? We don't know. So what we did, we wanted to be prepared and say, you know, let's just build it so if it happens, we don't have to worry about it.
And it's just the 2 of us that are cleaning them, so...
Yeah, it does get to be fun when you're out. And the other thing about cleaning snow off a hoop house, don't mean to digress a little bit here, but it'll tend to build up on the sides, and that's another reason to put more ribs in. It gives it more strength on the side itself. So the pressure from pressing in, it gets to be pretty great the more snow you rake off the top and the more that piles in. So having just that much more strength, you know, every 4 feet instead of 5 just makes a big difference. We didn't put any purlins on this design. I think you could, you know. We've seen some great designs on people who have modified these or are actually using these Caterpillars. Our friends across the valley at Raindrop, and by the way, we'll put a link down to their video. Did a great couple of videos on putting their Farmer's Friend Caterpillar together. Different kind of end system and something to consider. So I mean, this works for us, and certainly isn't something, you know, that says this is what you got to do. There's more than one way to do these types of things, and so we'll link to their video, which is really good. But they put a kind of a wood railing system in about 2 foot off the ground to kind of keep the ribs together. They put a metal purlin system down the center, and so their structure is pretty rigid.
They braced their side.
And they braced the ends because their ends are freestanding, and they also put for the center posts by the door are actually sunk into the ground. They don't use a cable system on it, so their ends are rigid, and so they needed to make certain that they had, you know, good strength on it. So if you do go down that route, it's important to think about cross bracing on the inside to make certain that, you know, you get that strength, because it doesn't matter, sooner or later the wind's going to blow at the front of your structure or the back of your structure, and you want to make certain that that's as strong as you can make it. So this is the completed end system. We have channeling on the top to hold down, and this is where we built in the door. Upon occasion, if we get an extreme wind event, we'll also attach wiggle wire to the roll down plastic at the bottom, which basically seals the entire unit off. If you counted how many times a year we have to use the bottom channel in the wintertime, it probably ends up being maybe a dozen times over the course of like 4 months, which isn't too bad.
It just helps us sleep at night.
Yeah, it just gives a little more protection. When we do put the door in, and we'll show this on the video when we make the doors, we overlap the plastic. So about 1 foot in the center, so there's actually plastic overlapping plastic. And so when it's pinned down, it actually, you know, almost acts like a single sheet. Okay, so the next step here is we are going to go to the videos on putting the skin on itself and the steps that we have to do with that. So until we get ready for part 4, I want to thank you for watching today, and be sure to subscribe. You can hit the subscribe button depending, it could be over here, but it's definitely on the end screen, so take a look at that. We also have other videos, other playlists of activities that we've done here on the farm, so be sure to check those out, and please hit the subscribe button. And I want to thank you for watching today, and you have a good day.